And last.
Just ripping heaters.
Biggest big day. Sorry about that. Oh, my God. I'm so confident. Like, what the hell? Yeah.
Do you want these?
It's a friend.
I was holding it.
Last piece I made.
It's just that how bad. I need a new computer for my battery. Yeah.
Right into the notes app or what?
Yeah. Well, no, it's not even that crazy. I just don't want to do it. Well, now I'm worried.
Is that the ground back there?
Oh my God.
See, now I'm upset a lot. Look at the ball, like, Colorado.
What is that?
Somebody up here.
Why is it so confusing?
They were so close. Yeah. Did you see it? First time since January.
He's so bitter.
Tom, did you make the one that said, like, picture you guys have to use when you finally. He was anointed 6 months ago.
It's just that's part of it, just a photo. It's just the only picture you ever see on the
The silver bullet and see what happens.
Just respond to it and see what happens. See if you got it.
Yeah, when you see it on silver bulletin.
I want to see how long before you see it.
I understand getting off. They're gonna lose the hype. Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta get back to the story.
He keeps finding the one South America. Tweeting up the spin of the
I think I know.
There we go.
Now we're serious.
I think it's funny.
Listen, man, Richard,
Well,
It's all your little,
it's complicated.
it's very.
There's a couple of
Hey, Brad, Chris Holtman, yeah, Chris Holtman, so the shooting coach for the Suns.
No, and like, it's unusual, but not. Like, I feel like, that. That's probably gonna start laughing.
Screenshotted all of our technical.
That's what I'm saying, like, that's our block. I mean, I can hold with some things that they pay for.
Don't say it out loud.
That's why I didn't say it out.
There's like a sign code. Obscure thing. Oh, God. All these years later, you can probably change it. So, it's ridiculous how it's held up.
I was never. No, I just was never gonna say that.
Thanks for being here. We'll open up this press conference over here to the right, Don Meredith, WBMS.
First day of spring, just attitude of the team being back, and obviously much talk about the quarterback race. Is it still wide open, and is there a pecking order?
No, right now, we're going to roll those guys like we did last year, and today was just to get moving around. Our first day off of spring break, and we wanted to get going. We're going to do spring practice in 4 weeks. Usually we do it in 5. We would typically start the week before spring break. We decided to push that back because of how late the season ended. So today we wanted to just make sure we're getting guys moving around. Didn't want to get any soft tissue or anything like that. Just to start, we'll take tomorrow, and then Wednesday, we'll do more against each other, and then ramp it up again on Friday. And then from there on out, the cadence will be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, going all the way to Saturday, to the spring game. And we're going to assess it and try to do as much as we can that day, even though we're calling it a showcase. We're going to try to do as much as we can during that game based on health and those type of things. Because I think it's important for some of our guys to get on the field, and going back to the quarterback situation, want to see what that looks like on the field in front of the great crowd. Because our first game is against Texas this year. So we got to come out of the gates, running.
Matt Murphy, 24/7 Sports.
Ryan, as you guys kind of get things going here, you're obviously building coming off of a national championship. That changes things, I imagine, being targeted and trying to get guys motivated in the same way they were before. Just the challenges at this time of year to build back. Do you lean on people that have gone through similar runs before, or kind of how do you approach that?
Appreciate your St. Patrick's Day colors, representing the Irish. It's good. We had a meeting early on with our leadership committee, and one of the first things we had as we go through our first presentation of how we want to talk to our team during the winter program. And Mick and I, show the presentation to leadership group and look for feedback. If they agree, if they don't agree, if they want to add things, delete things, and we have discussion. And one of the first things was reinforce the culture. And after the end of the meeting, it was we have to rebuild the culture because this team hasn't done anything. There's guys on this team that don't know the culture yet. They were fortunate enough to be with the team during the last 2 games, which was great to see. And I give a lot of credit to the seniors who last year really embraced them coming to be a part of the program. I've seen it before in years past where there's a little bit of a feeling they're not really part of our team. We've put all the work in, it's a little bit of a distraction. Our older guys felt like it was good to allow them to see what the brotherhood's all about, to pass down what it means to be a Buckeye and our culture, introduce them to that. And so I thought that was great, but the leaders of this group decided that, they want to take some of the stuff down, some of the national championship things down in the facility, because they realized we didn't win a national championship. Last year's team did. And that was a good start, because that's the right mentality to have, is that we got to start this thing from scratch and build from there. You could probably name them. We have a leadership committee that this year, because we have so many new names, Coach Mick and I appointed them and then allowed them to add or subtract some guys. And then after the spring's done, we'll then have the team vote on it, because I think at that point, some of the new faces will know who's who on the team. And then from there, once we get into the summer, we have a really good idea who the captains are. But who the leaders are, and so you could probably name 80% of them.
Tony German, Buckeye Huddle.
Ryan, looked like today safeties were kind of switching back and forth between boundary and field. Is that a spring thing, or is that something you guys want to do this year?
We're going to look at it and see what makes the most sense. With the nickel position, the adjuster and the bandit, that was sort of, how we identified it last year with Jordan and Lathan and Caleb. Well, now it's going to be a little bit different. So, we want to put those guys in position to be as successful as we possibly can. As you noticed later in the season, Caleb found himself playing a little bit more down where the nickel used to be, and Jordan was playing a little bit, more safety position. So it was good to have some ability to change, the job descriptions and have versatility. And so we'll do the same, but this year, a little bit different bodies in there. So, we want to have the flexibility to adjust. And then just like on offense, it's the same thing on defense. We want to put our players in a position to be successful. And I thought one of the best things we did in the second half of the season was do that. In particular with Caleb, we put him more towards the action, and he had more of an impact on the game. So we need to do that on defense this year based on who we have. And so we're going to look at, field boundary, strong, weak, left, right, all the above.
Do you think there's a scenario where he's more boundary this year than he was last year even?
I don't know about that. I guess there could be a situation for sure, but as you guys can imagine, we want him involved in as many plays as we can. So we're going to get him there. And I guess if there's some boundary stuff, I guess, but to me, he's going to be more involved with some of the other stuff, I would think.
And Hope, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, you guys had Nate Ebner out there. I'm curious, how did that come together and what kind of value does he bring?
Well, he brings credibility, first off. This is a guy who was really self-made, as you know, and turned out to have a great career in the NFL and was a big part of special teams. So, he can have an impact on the safety room. He can have an impact on special teams, and somebody that's now trying to make the transition from being a player to coach. So great to have him around.
You have as many, former Buckeyes, guys who played in the NFL as you do here. Just what kind of benefit does that give to this team?
I think it just, again, builds culture. Guys understand what it means. There's experience, especially guys who have walked in those shoes before, who have gone through the process of playing at Ohio State. This is unlike any other place. So, they've won games, they've lost games, they've grown. They get to tell their story of when they were in those same, shoes. And I think it makes a big difference. Take a guy like Nate or James or Hart, and also their experience of playing in the NFL and making that transition. So there's just a lot of credibility when those guys speak. But you always want to make sure you surround yourself with guys that love being Buckeyes, that love being around Ohio State. And to me, that's what's really important.
Cameron Keith Robinson, The Athletic.
Ryan, you mentioned the freshman being here for that playoff run. Is it too early to see maybe some of the experience or practice they got there show up now, or do you feel like you need to see that through the spring? Like, can you see a difference and then getting just a little bit of time?
I think we'll probably be able to tell that once we get going on Wednesday and Friday, just on how quickly they're able to get on the field. And does it look like it's the first time they've ever heard some of the calls before, or do you not notice them early on? And it's usually pretty good when you don't notice a young guy. I don't know that until we actually get on the field, but I know in terms of the expectation of 4 to 6, A to B +2, the preparation, how we handle ourselves in meetings. I think all of those things were really good for those guys to see. How that translates right now to practice, the first week of practice in the spring is yet to be seen. They're still young. They're still trying to figure it out. But I know for sure, once we get going in August, they're going to be much further along than most, because they did have those couple weeks, and now they're jumping into it in the spring here in mid-year.
Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Roll.
Right, we saw Austin Cerebell taking some reps at tackle. Is that something that you guys have talked to him about and moved him over to tackle, or is it just something kind of experience?
Well, I think now that we're going to a roster of 105, it looks like that's where we're headed. Then we have to have versatility, and guys have to be able to play multiple positions. You saw that happen with Donovan. You saw it happen with Carson this year. You've seen it happen with a lot of our guys, and so we want to be able to teach guys in dual roles this year. I think it's important, and not just on the offensive line. If you're a tight end, you need to be able to play receiver. So maybe a tight end can learn protection and line up in the backfield. A receiver like Brandon Ennis can line up in the backfield and take a handoff. You think about Xavier Johnson, you think about the run we've made late in the season. Guys have had to move and play multiple positions. I think you find that sometimes in the NFL. The difference here is that we're not going to be able to sign people off of waivers. At 105, that's tough, because when you look at the NFL, people are going to say, well, they have a 56-man roster, but the truth is when they bring guys in and send guys, onto waivers, most teams are in the north of 115, 120 of guys in the building and out of the building. Well, if you only have 105 guys to work with, and some of those guys are young freshmen, then, you have to have versatility in all those positions. So that's an example of a position that we're making sure guys play multiple positions. And we've seen Austin play guard. We want him to play some tackle. We want Luke to play guard. We want him to play some center. We want Tegra to be able to move around. It'll give us more versatility, especially late in the season. Yes, but I don't have that with me right now. I'll get it to you next time we get together. Yeah, there's about 4 or 5 guys that aren't. Yeah.
Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Ryan, you've said it before. before many times, this is a place where expectations are high. You win it all, you're expected to win it again, right? But this is a kind of unique for you in that, what do you do now after you've won it? You kind of spoke to it when you answered Pat's question. In the leadership role, what are you doing differently? Are you a little tougher on them? Do you have a leadership book you guys are reading? I mean, what's different?
Actually, yeah, we are going to do that. The guys don't know that yet, so I'm not going to get into it. But I do actually have a book that I've picked out that I think is good. And I'm not going to, until I hand it to the guys, I won't say it, but it'll be probably over the next couple of weeks. It's funny you say that because we haven't really done that before. But I think it's important. And I think it's a good project for our guys. But, the guys have to step up. And I think that's one of the things that I know you've heard me talk about it a lot, but what we do in our off season and what Mick does, in the weight room, it's our backbone because he's constantly placing guys in situations to be leaders. And in order to be a leader, it's one thing to do your job, but you have to bring people with you. And how do you bring people with you? You build trust and then you inspire and motivate them to bring with you, but your voice has to be heard. And so where do you do that? You got to get on the field. You got to, Coach Mick's got to do it in the weight room where, you get up in front of all these men and you speak and you motivate them. And the first few times it's a little clunky, just like being a coach, you get in front of a group of people, but the more you do it, the more you have courage to get up in front of your teammates and your peers and drive them, then that's what leadership's about. And so we know how important leadership is, and these guys have embraced that. They saw it, and I think that's whether it's the quarterbacks or on defense. There were so many great examples last year of what really good leadership is. So they know what it looks like. Now some of these guys have to step out of their comfort zone and take on that new role. And the day of the celebration here on that Sunday, we had our last team meeting, which is something we typically don't get a chance to do. And we had our champions meeting, which is something, again, in the last game, you typically don't have a chance to do. So we celebrated the champions. And then everybody who sits in here, as you guys know, the young guys are down here. I mean, the older guys are down here, younger guys are in the back. I had all the guys who are leaving next year stand up here, and everybody had to move down into a different seat. And it was a little bit of a kind of like a ceremony. Like, you're now going from being a junior to being a senior that we're counting on to be a leader. You're now going from being a freshman to a guy who has to step up as a sophomore and get on the field. Or now your role has physically changed in the room by moving down in the team room. And I thought that was important. And I shared with them that this was the standard. This is what it's supposed to look like. These guys right here, what they went through along their career, how many of them stuck with the program and showed leadership. And, when do you show leadership in defining moments when it's the hardest? So those are all the conversations we've had up to this point. We got to go do it with this new group. We're trying not to talk about last year's group, but it is good to have that example moving forward, what it's supposed to look like.
Just curious real quick, did you talk to anyone else, whether it's Urban or Jim Tressel or anything, of how to follow up a title, or you plan on doing that, or how have you sort of thought about how to do this?
Yeah, I have a chance to speak to a lot of different coaches, which is great, and it's it's a blessing. So many different people reach out, after you win something, and you get a chance to share ideas and thoughts, and but at the end of the day, to me, it's the process. You have to trust your process and trust your culture, and really, to me, what the last that last run just solidified, I think, for everybody in the building, is just like the culture works, the system works, how we do it, our process works. Like, it just gave credibility to everything we're doing. And truth be told, when you're a first-time head coach and you haven't done it before and you become the head coach at Ohio State, you typically don't get the benefit of the doubt until you win it all. Because you haven't really done it yet. It's like anything else. And so now we have the testimony moving forward. And I think for our guys, that's the most powerful thing we can do.
Austin Ward, podcast.
Ryan, what makes CJ Hicks a good fit in that defensive line group?
Well, I think the first thing is, his quickness off the edge. He's got a great first step. He's powerful for somebody maybe who isn't as big or strong as maybe some of the defensive ends we've had. He can really get skinny around the edge and reduce the surface area, has a good knack for rushing the passer. And so we messed around a little bit with it last year, but now we're going to it more full time.
Stephen Means,
Cleveland.com. No one was expecting you to come in here and name a starting quarterback today, obviously. But you typically put on a timeline for when those quarterbacks have been named. Maybe some of that is when you feel comfortable doing it versus when they actually go out there and win the job and do all the stuff you're talking about here. Does that competition have to be close? Does it have to always go in the fall camp, or is there ever a scenario where you could get to the end of spring and realistically feel like you have your guy and publicly name him?
Yeah, I do. I think so. Yeah, I can't tell you that I've felt that since I've been here. I think there's been leaders in the clubhouse, and we've told guys that, like, when it was between Dwayne and Joe, it was close, but Dwayne did have the upper hand, and we let both of those guys know that. And I think we're pretty transparent when it comes to it. But there's also, a lot of football to be played in August. And so, I think back on where guys are at in the spring and then where they come, and even think about where Will was at this time last year and where he got to by the end of the season, or even where he got to by August. That was a huge jump. So we try not to make hasty decisions. We try to make sure we're thorough, but if somebody's that much further ahead, then someone's that much further ahead.
What is the difference between, essentially, like you said, you had leaders in the clubhouse before, but not to the point that they got to the finish line? What is that difference that you see from the guy being the leader at the end of the spring, quote unquote, versus you stamp him with that approval in fall camp? What is that jump they usually have to do?
Well, I think in spring you have 15 practices, and a good portion of the 15 practices are guys learning and growing. And the number one job for each individual player is to get better individually, and then we start to come together as a team. And so, we will have some team opportunities in the spring, but a lot of it is individually getting better. It's 7-on-7. It's teamwork. It's more segmented. Teamwork is usually a blitz period, a second and long, a third down, a red zone, things like that. And we're learning and we're teaching. Once we get into the summer, it's a little bit more move it. It's a little bit more situational. You start to feel a little bit more what it's going to look like in the game. You still don't know what an impact someone's going to have with their feet as a quarterback. It's the same thing at running back. It's hard to judge, especially coming out of the spring. So I just think that, first off, there's more practices in the preseason. And secondly, it's a little bit more game-like and you're further along.
Bill Landis, Kings of the North.
Ryan, as you continue to roll the quarterbacks, as you said, what do you want their mindset to be? Is it go win the job, or is it get better? Is it some balance of those two things?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I think it's easy for people on the outside, family members, friends, agents, things like that, mentors, go win the job. Well, there's so much that comes with winning the job. And as you guys know, the quarterback position, there's just so much that goes with it. So to me, it's the process of understanding how to get better and then continually working. And when you make a mistake, you learn from that mistake and you grow quickly. And a lot of it has to do with their preparation. When a guy walks into the huddle or walks into that practice, you can tell if he's prepared or not. I mean, if he's up there, and I say it all the time, the first level of understanding is what. If you don't know what to do, you have no chance of playing quarterback at Ohio State. So all that work has to be done prior to. Then you got to learn how to do it, your footwork, how the ball is supposed to come out, your technique. And then why are we doing it? Why are we calling this play? Why are we calling 4 verticals? Why are we calling a crossing route? Like all those things. And then you got to go put it on the field, and you're still going to make mistakes, and you got to keep growing from it. So it's just understanding that the process is going to be a battle, but like you have to make sure when you walk in that building every day that you're prepared. You also have to throw it out there and make sure that, you understand you're going to fail, but that you have to learn quickly. And if you're continually making the same mistakes over and over again, it's going to take longer to get to where you want to be and win the job. And then as we start getting closer to, like we talk about the preseason, where I got to take care of the football, I got to, do really well in third down. I got to win in the red zone. And then everybody's different. Every quarterback's different. Will was a lot different than CJ. CJ was a lot different than Dwayne. Dwayne was different than Justin. Like everyone's different. And so these quarterbacks are different as well. Different size, different makeup, different skill sets. So the number one job, though, for the quarterback is to be the hardest working guy in the building. There shouldn't be any question. Like if someone says, who's the hardest working guy? It should be the quarterback. If it's somebody else, like that's a problem, because they should be the first one in the building and the last one to leave. And then they have to be tough. If it's 4th and 2 against Texas, like we got to find a way to get 3 yards. That's the bottom line. And those guys understand that. They know it. Mick reinforces it in the weight room daily. But those are some of the things that we talk about at quarterback.
Ryan, I know it's super early first day of spring practice, but what were just your initial thoughts of the quarterbacks, whether it's the communication stepping up or just how they attacked the day?
Yeah, I mean, I'm never happy coming out of the first day. So, and it's funny, I actually had a chance to go and visit some different schools with my son, and I didn't watch any practices. I just kind of took myself out of those situations and let my son do it. But after talking to the coaches, like after day 2 or day 3, I'm like, you feel like you're not going to win a game, right? Is that typically how it goes the first 2 or 3 days of practice? Like, thank God you told me that, because I just literally walked off the field thinking we will not win a game all season. So the first few days of spring practice are always brutal when it comes to that, especially with quarterbacks, because that's what I'm always watching. But no, it wasn't that bad. It was good. It was just mostly on air today. We just wanted to get guys moving. We didn't do a lot of what we call variable work where we're going against somebody else. It was mostly just, kind of get moving, just teach the young guys how to go, and then we'll get going on Wednesday on decision making. But they're all talented. The ball comes out of their hand well. They're all good athletes. So lot to be determined.
Dylan Davis, Delaware Gazette. This time last year, we were all enamored with JJ and how physically opposing he was. As you look at this freshman class now, are there guys that stick out to you and say, like, he's physically ready to play now if he can just get the offense, the defense down, those kind of things?
Yeah. I'm impressed with the way these guys have worked. I'm impressed with the way they look. I mean, there's probably not a guy in that class where I'm like physically that, they can't have an impact as a freshman. Yeah, I've been impressed, and they're coming in with that mentality too. It'd be hard for me to just point one guy out, but yeah, I mean, at all positions.
It seems like he has the frame, like a prototype corner. Obviously, again, he has to get the mental part of it down. Is that a guy? I know corners kind of been a long game. There's a lot of talent there. Is that a guy that maybe you can see crack with too deep?
Yeah. If guys deserve to play, we're going to play them. And, you saw us even roll the offensive lineman at the end of the year because we felt like those guys deserved to play and they needed to play. It'll be the same thing there. And, if that means moving guys, around, we played with like 3 safeties last year. And then how do you see Lorenzo? Is he more of a safety? Is he more of a corner? So is that more of a 3-corner look? I think that's all great conversation that's going on right now in the defensive staff room. And then, it's just like on offense, if you have like 4 really good receivers, you might find yourself in, more wide receiver sets. We have more tight ends this year. So so those are all the conversations, things that need to be worked out. Not right now, but it's their job to do everything they possibly can to say, hey, I need to play. And I think we got some great candidates for that.
How jarring was it for you to walk out there and not see Jack, JT, Cody, all those guys that you've gotten so used to seeing? Was it jarring? I mean, what was it like just to not see those guys?
Yeah, it's every year that happens though. That you think about, that's a great thing about being at Ohio State is, we get such great impact players, and once spring starts, you have to restart and look at it differently. But it started with mat drills. We've had 2 really good mat drills, and in those mat drills, we didn't have some of those same guys out there, but that's part of the process. And it's a great opportunity for guys to step up. And now we're on to the next year now, and doesn't mean it's going to be easy, but it's a different group of guys, and all these guys are going to have to step up in a big way. So just getting started, but it is a transition for sure.
And the running backs, obviously, those guys are gone, Trey and Quinchon. How do you see that evolving? Do you expect to have the committee approach like you had last year, at least a tandem?
Well, for James has obviously been here and he knows it. So he's going to have to step up. And it's not easy to figure out what running backs can do in the spring because we're not tackling them. But he knows what it looks like. He knows the offense. CJ has played more, but doesn't really know what we do here. And obviously when you come to Ohio State, there's a transition. It was a transition for Quinchon. So I'm excited to see how that looks. He did a nice job in the first couple of weeks as, he actually was a scout team back. He played Jeremiah Love and some of the guys we had, the guys at Texas, and did a good job with that. I thought he ran hard. But then it's going to be interesting to see these young guys, Bo Jackson, Isaiah, we'll have Turbo coming in, Sam, so we need these guys, like you said, to provide some depth and support there and step up. So to say that, it's solidified, we know what's going on in that room is not the case, but we do have some really good options there and excited to see where these guys go. And sometimes when I think it's a great example of the offensive line. Like you take Luke Montgomery, for example. Like here's somebody that really didn't play the majority of the season. When he finally had the opportunity, stepped up and everything changed in his world. I think it's the same thing for the running backs. Like James is a great example. James ran pretty hard in some of the games early on in the season, but when Quinshon and Travion were in there and he wasn't getting, the carries, you kind of go about the business of, all right, this is my role, and you embrace the role. Now your role has changed. Now he's going to have to step up, and he seems to be having a great offseason.
How important of a get was Ethan Onyeonwa in the portal? I've heard some draft analysts say he could have been a second-round pick if he left Rice and went pro. He could have been a second-round pick this year. Just how big of a get was that for you guys?
Well, when you lose two guys to the portal, two tackles, that certainly affected the room. So, I think it was important for both those guys to come in. We needed that for the depth of the room and just for the room in general. But, it's been exciting to see those guys work. I'm excited to see what it looks like with the pads on. Big E's already changed his body a little bit, so that's been good. And he's embraced the culture. Phillips the same way. He's an Ohio guy too, so he knows Ohio State well. And the guys seem to embrace them. It's important to have the right fit. I keep saying that over and over again. And I think that we did that again this year. With the guys that we brought in, they were the right fit culture-wise. They came in, understood that this is Ohio State, worked, earned the respect of the guys around them. And that was important with guys like Will and Quinshon last year, Caleb and Seth. Well, it's the same thing with these guys coming in, Max Clare and, Ethan and Phillip and these guys. So important to make sure we continue to do that. When we add pieces in, they fit the culture. So I thought it was a really big get for us.
Spring, but do you envision Ethan as a left tackle, and do you want to keep him at around, I think he's listed at 357 pounds. Do you like that? Or
no, we like it a little lighter than that. Okay. That's a little heavy. Yeah, we got to cut that down just a little bit. But the good thing is he can carry weight. And so now if we cut him down, we're just going to see more and more athleticism and bend. So that's good. He's going to start out at left, and then we'll go from there. But again, the more flexibility we can have with these guys, the better for the room, because you typically think, all right, we have five. Who's the sixth? And then what does the sixth do? Well, he plays tackle or he plays center. Well, that really pigeonholes you, because now if you lose a guard, now you're going to quote unquote your seventh guy. But if you have swing guys, now you're playing your best seven or your best eight. You don't get yourself jammed up. So I think that's something that we have to do moving forward. Is guys have to have almost a primary and a secondary position.
Adam King, WBNS.
It's only been a couple weeks with Matt Patricia, but he seemed to be fitting out there with the guys pretty well. How involved are you right now, knowing that it's a new system, getting your head in the meetings, or do you just kind of let him take the reins here?
No, it's everybody involved. It's just the whole defensive staff. It's myself, but Matt's done a great job of building relationships early on here. He's excited to get going. It's just a start. We're just getting moving. But I think there's just a lot of things that he's going to bring to that room. That's great. There's a lot of things that we've already done that's going to stay in place. So it's good. Again, just getting started. Like literally just taught a couple defenses today and get them lined up, get them moving around, and we'll keep moving from there and keep building on the packages.
When you have someone that's so just football minded, do you like that, especially coming from the NFL background with him?
Yeah. You love being around smart guys. And he's smart. I mean, he's played a lot of football, or coached a lot of football, and coached some really good players. So has a lot of credibility when he speaks. And I think it's great for him to just be around the culture, see how we do things. And he's jumped in with 2 feet and embraced it. Again, it's the same thing as when you bring in a transfer, when you bring in a coach, it's the same type of thing. Do you have the right fit? And I think it takes a certain guy to be able to walk into a room with, 4 other coaches like James and Larry and Tim and Matt, and be able to embrace what's already been here. We just won a national championship, but then also, look to enhance. And so, we'll see. We're just getting started, but certainly so far it's been very positive.
Jeremy Birmingham, podcast.
Ryan, obviously, as you said, you lose big players every year, key players every year, but losing as many as you did, and not just on the field, but the roles they all carry, Jack, Cody, Emeka, different types of leaders. How does that change what you have to do and be for this group over these next 4 weeks?
Yeah, no, there's no question. Like you said, the number is certainly significant. And so, as coaches, we gotta do our part and make sure that we're developing. And to me, it isn't. it isn't like the older guys. To me, it's like the next level of guys that we've really got to bring along and explain to them what it means to, become really good football players, how to build trust in their teammates, how they're going to go about building discipline in their life, what it means in the run that we need to go on next year, and that first game, what that's going to look like, and all those types of things. So we got to be on our game as coaches. We got to develop at a high level, and that's the job of each individual coach. They got to make sure they're recruiting at a high level and bringing in the right guys. But ultimately, each coach is responsible for their room. I say that over and over again. Like, it's your job to develop, to make sure that your room is producing at a high level, is showing great leadership, and you're recruiting the right guys, and you have enough depth for late in the season. And so when each guy is doing their job, we talk about being 10 strong. We've done that for a long time. Then you got a chance to win them all.
Just a couple more questions. Do you feel different as a head coach right now? I mean, obviously coming off the national championship, you seem a little bit more relaxed.
Yeah, I'm definitely more relaxed, Jeremy. I mean, to say I'm not as crazy. There's no question. Yeah, we're in a different place than we were a couple months ago. I mean, let's call it for what it is. But that doesn't change, like, the approach. And I think that's the thing. Like, some days you wake up. I said it was kind of like when I had the opportunity to become the head coach at Ohio State. You walk down the hall and you see Woody Hayes and Tressel and Urban and Cooper and Earl Bruce, and you pinch yourself. And a month later, you wake up and you're like, I'm the head coach at Ohio State. Like, man, it's the same thing with winning a national championship. Like, some days you wake up and you almost forgot you won it, because life just moves on. It just does. And it's on to the next challenge. It's on to the next group of guys. But winning just gives you an opportunity to continue to have an impact on young people's lives. And that's why you get into coaching, period. And if you're not, then you're in it for the wrong reasons. And so that's it. And the staff, when I talk to guys and hire them and bring them in here, that should be the number one goal. Bring in young people, help them reach their dreams and goals in the game of football and in life. Winning just allows you to do that, because if you don't win them, they're going to find somebody else. That's just the truth. And I share that with the coaches all the time. But no, it's great to have a certain level of testimony and credibility to the work that we put in around here.
Just to follow up on some of the leadership questions, I think we all assume that Sonny's one of those guys that has a big role in that room. How much do you kind of see him growing in his own leadership form versus maybe what he learned from Cody and some of the other guys on defense last year? Like, how much does he balance being himself versus being, what he learned from those guys?
Yeah, I think he's finding his voice. I hear him speak up a lot. I think I've been impressed so far with his leadership, and I think when you speak with him, you'll feel the same way. Just a stud in all areas. Man's man, works at it, takes it very seriously, speaks up when appropriate. We'll ask a tough question when he needs to. And that starts with his family, with his dad, with his brother, with his mom. That's the way he was raised. And being a Buckeye means something, obviously his lineage and his family, but also growing up in Pickerington, and then, just being here with his brother now. So he's certainly one of the biggest leaders on the team.
Ryan, to follow up on some of the quarterback stuff, how does their age and experience level have any sort of effect on how you evaluate them and maybe the timeline? Because this is last year you had a guy in Will who had made almost 30 starts. Devin had been around for 2.5 years. It was his third spring. This is a much younger group. What sort of effect does that maybe have?
Well, it's like we were just talking about. When you've done it before, you get the benefit of the doubt. When you don't, you don't. And it's the same way with being a quarterback. And Will got the benefit of the doubt because he had won a Big 12 championship. He had done it before. He had won big games at Kansas State. So we had tape of him doing it. We know that he had physically done it. So when there were some days you get off the field, you still went back on that. When you're a young quarterback that hasn't done it, you got to prove yourself every day because you don't have a body of work to go back on. And that's just being a young quarterback until you kind of prove yourself and you make those win those big games. That's kind of how it goes. That's life. And so we'll keep evaluating them much like that. But we've been in these situations before. We've had young quarterbacks. We brought them along. And a couple of those guys, once they got into year 3, they moved on to the NFL. We finally got them where we want them to go. But that's life too. So, we know we have a good supporting cast around those guys again. So that's important. The offensive line will be critical in how we run the football. But as you know, some of the weapons we have at the skill positions will allow us to just, again, make the routine plays routinely, take care of the football, and then make the plays when we need them to make the plays.
You feel like this inexperienced, or
Say it again.
have you had a group that's this inexperienced before, the quarterback position?
I don't know. I'm just trying to think of, probably CJ's sophomore year, right? I mean, that was probably similar that way. We don't think of it that way now because of how CJ played that second, but that Minnesota game, and then we lost the Oregon game, although he played well, and then he was still trying to find his way, and then Kyle played in the Akron game, so I guess it was similar. Maybe that's probably the closest one I would say. Yeah.
And final question, Andrew Gillis, Cleveland.com. Brian, you guys had a lot of recruits today. Obviously, you're going to have a handful over the next couple of weeks. How big can these days be to build those relationships and get kids on campus?
Oh, huge to see our guys work, to see the energy when you walk into the Woody. I think that's you just feel it when you walk in. You feel greatness, you feel excellence. You walk into that indoor, you see the new banners up on the wall, like it's all there. And so we take a lot of pride in developing the most elite players in the entire world. And then, the expectations of winning championships. And so it's great for recruits. It's one thing to put it on Instagram. It's one thing to follow our social media or talk to coaches. Another thing to walk in the building and see it and be around great people and be around a culture of great players and great coaches. So I think that's obviously what separates us. And anytime you can physically walk in and see it, it makes a big difference. I think it's good for parents to see as well. I know as a dad, I want to take a look at the people and look them in the eye. There's a lot of great weight rooms, a lot of great facilities across the country, a lot of great stadiums. But to me, ultimately, it comes down to the people. And it's been like that a lot longer than I've been here.
See the kids here. What things can they ask you or ask position coaches to kind of let you know that they're on the right track? Like what clicks for you when you see recruiting, and what can they tell you?
Sometimes it takes care of itself. Like Ohio State's not for everybody, and some people it might be just too much. I don't know. The expectations are high here, man. And sometimes that takes care of itself, and that's okay. You have to want to be at Ohio State, whether you're from the state of Ohio or not. And, some people are they gravitate towards it. This is what they wanted. Jeremiah Smith, this is what he wanted. I could name a bunch of guys that are that way. Like they wanted to be around this, where every day when you walk on that field, it is a war. I mean, you have to compete every single day for your position. And you got to compete every single week to win every game. And so, that expectation is a big part of it. I think the second thing, though, is, people and families who want to be around this style of culture. When you walk in the building, it's a family atmosphere. A lot of people talk about family. That's another thing to actually live it and get around our players. And so what we try to do is open up our doors and please get around the locker room, get around our players, go have, go have lunch with our guys and be around our players, because to me, they're the ones who are, living it on a daily basis. Please get around our parents and let them tell the stories of how we've handled great situations, tough situations, how we've hung together, what their experience is like for their son. And to me, that's it. And people just gravitate towards that, and you can feel it, because in today's day and age, if you have to talk somebody into coming to your school, and it doesn't go exactly perfect, we all know what's going to happen. They're going to walk out the door and enter the portal. So we all know that there's other things involved nowadays, but it hasn't changed in terms of relationships. And you want people to choose Ohio State for the right reasons, to be a Buckeye for the right reasons, so that when it maybe doesn't go exactly as it was to plan, or doesn't go exactly perfect, they're willing to stick it out and hang in there and work through difficult times.
Coach, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks, guys.